Hey everyone, Joe Waxman here. And in this video, I want to look at the conjunction of Jupiter and Chiron. Yeah, I'm going to do Chiron. So let's get started. Guys, don't forget to hit the like button, please, and subscribe if you haven't already. And just a reminder, my class is on Sunday, January 14th. If you're not on the list, email me, and I'll put you on the list. I'm asking $15, but $10 is also fine. And as always, if you can't afford that, and but you still want to come, just let me know. All right. What is Jupiter and Chiron? Well, Jupiter we know is expansion, success, philosophy, religion, high-mindedness, adventure, travel. It's a great benefic. Jupiter brings a lot of good things to whatever it comes in contact with, especially if it's strong, right? Chiron's it's nuanced, and we're going to look at it in more detail. But Chiron is called the wounded healer often. Sometimes I call it the wounded reject. Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird planet. It has to do with fiction or science fiction or weird combinations of things. I'm going to share my screen. We'll get a better idea. I think it'll be easier to understand. We'll get a clearer picture if we can look at the mythology. All right. We'll look at the mythology, then we'll look at the actual body itself. All right. He was a centaur. He was called the wisest and justest of all centaurs. So Chiron's also a teacher and a healer. All right. He was notable. One of the main things is that he was a centaur, but he was different from all the other centaurs. So Chiron's weird, okay? Chiron's different. Chiron's unique. And he has a full body of a human, and it seems like a horse is growing out of his butt. I mean, if that's not weird. So there's all this so associations with being different, being weird, being an outcast, being unique, but also fictional, right? Really fictional. Really just kind of creative and applying to the arts and to anything in sort of make-believe land. Let's see. Youth nurturing nature. Art. He was taught as the young centaur the art of medicine, herbs, music, archery, hunting, gymnastics, and prophecy, and made him rise above his beastly nature. Chiron was known for his knowledge and skill with medicine, and thus credited with the discovery of botany and pharmacy, the science of herbs and medicine. Other centaurs were known for being wild, lusty, and indulgent drinkers and carousers, violent when intoxicated. Chiron, by contrast, was very intelligent, civilized, and kind. He was not related to the other centaurs, even though he was similar due to his parentage. He was the son of Titan Cronus and Oceanid Philyra. In any case, he was a teacher and a philosopher and an astrologer even. Let's see. I don't want to read all of this, but he was rejected by his mother for being so different. So that was the first thing. And then he gained success, as a teacher. He became very intelligent, very wise. These are all his students. I'm not going to go through this. And then he died because Hercules sought his wisdom in defeating an enemy. So Chiron made a poison for the arrows that Hercules was to use to defeat this enemy. And then one of the arrows struck Chiron in his heel or his ankle or something like that, and then he died. right? So he has the unhealed wound. But so that's the mythology, right? So Chiron is very high-minded, lends himself well to Jupiter, because Jupiter and Chiron are both teachers, right? So they fit well together, but Chiron's much more fictional, right? Much more lends himself to the fantasy realm. Jupiter is very ruling, Neptune is very creative as well. But let's look at the physical. So Chiron is a minor planet that has some weird qualities, right? It orbits between Saturn and Uranus, and just to give you an idea what that looks like, right? Orbit of Uranus, orbit of Saturn. So you can see here, this is Chiron. And I just learned recently, actually, when it's in mid-Libra, it's in the orbit of Saturn. And when Chiron's in mid-Aries, it's in the orbit of Uranus. So Aries, Taurus, so forth, towards Libra, it's going towards Saturn. And then Libra, Scorpio, Sag, Capricorn, obviously, the rest, it's going towards Uranus. You can see where it's more Uranian and where it's more Saturnian, right? Where it's orbiting towards, where it's moving towards discovering the new in Uranus, or where it's taking that new lesson, because he's a teacher, the newfound knowledge of Uranus, and bringing it back to Saturn, which is kind of like the masses, the norm, the ordinary, right? Yeah, and so not only that, but so at the time of this of its discovery, it was the most distant known minor planet. It was even claimed to be the 10th planet by the press. Chiron was later found on several. Okay, that's not what I was looking for. It's in between a comet. Where's the? All right. Yeah, sorry about this. Chiron will probably become a short period comet in about 1 million years. Chiron, okay. Special characteristics, cometary behavior. Chiron brightened by 75%. This is behavior typical of comets, but not asteroids. Further observation, 1989, showed that Chiron has developed a cometary coma, so a tail. Chiron has a tail, right? And so it's similar, it's in a weird, cross classification, cross orbit between Saturn, Uranus, minor planet, and comet, right? Even asteroid, right? Chiron differs from other comets in that water is not a major component. So it's not like anything else. It's completely unique. And it's in its own classification. Chiron is officially designated as both a comet and a minor planet. Okay, so now we know why it has the association with Chiron, the completely unique centaur, who's not like other centaurs. All right, so that's just some background. Here's an image. Chiron even has a ring, sort of like Saturn. And it has some Uranian qualities because it's so unique, okay? So Chiron clearly defies definition. And that's one of the things that's that gives it its unique qualities and makes it so good or bad. It depends, right? Sometimes it's not good to be so weird, so off the beaten path, so not normal, right? But sometimes it's very good, right? For instance, let's look at Tobey Maguire in the Aries sign, Jupiter. We got Mars here. All right, but in Chiron, and it's an Aries. So obviously Mars is in domicile. Jupiter's okay. Jupiter is not really great, but it's not not in detriment or debilitation in Aries. But it's conjunct the MC. And so what's Tobey Maguire's main role that he's known for? Spider-Man, right? And so this fits perfectly, right? So in movies and art and creativity, Chiron works very well. Also philosophy and any higher-minded pursuits, right? Because it's okay to be different when you're really, one of the intelligentsia, right? In so arts, movies, cinema, creativity, philosophy, right? High-minded, anything like science as well. Where Chiron doesn't do well is where you're trying to just be normal Joe Schmo, but you're too weird to be it. So you're kind of wounded and rejected by the masses. And obviously, if there's hard aspects to Chiron, it'll bring out some of the negativities, wounds, and rejection, which are part of it. But yeah. But for playing these kind of, I mean, especially because Mars is here and Jupiter's bonifying the MC, that's great for, science fiction, action, Spider-Man, who's very, I mean, that's a Chironic kind of theme, right? Because it's complete fantasy, right? And it's just made up out of different elements, spider and man, horse and man, but not like the stereotypical one. He's full man and then a horse butt growing out of his own butt. I mean, it's kind of funny, but he does it well. Let's see, Jupiter is ruling the 8th house and the 5th house, so entertainment. 8th house for darker, heavier thematic roles, giving him a bit more authenticity and credibility, I guess. 8th house brings an element of depth and legitimacy to anything, because it's like it's so deep and powerful and authentic and raw. Uranus is opposite Chiron, but this is pretty generational, this Uranus Chiron opposition. And especially around that, I don't know how long it lasted, but definitely a lot of people in the 70s and 80s had, because they're moving similar orbits, right? Rotational speed. So they're moving together. I have it, Scorpio and Taurus, mine. But it is kind of painful because these are both malefics, or potentially, right? Chiron, the Uranus opposition to Chiron brings out like a wound of sort of uniqueness, being so unique that you just feel like ouch, I don't fit in at all. But he's obviously making it work to his advantage. Landing some pretty good rolls. Let me just check here, see anything interesting going on. Very slow Mercury. That'll be good for any mercurial houses. So, 2nd, speech, 11th, career success. Mercury's in Gemini, so obviously, his expression and speaking ability is quite strong. In any case, that's Tobey Maguire. Saturn is not very good here, but let's see. Moon has a really strong, tight inconjunct to Saturn. Moon rules Saturn, so that's helpful. In any case, yeah. It's Tobey Maguire. Let's move right along. I don't want to take too long for this. We'll go to Taurus. Let me read to you who else is in Aries. Angelina Jolie, Charlize Theron, Kate Winslet, Russell Brand, Mila Jovovich, Reese Witherspoon, a lot of actors and actresses, right? 50 Cent, rapper, and Tiger Woods. So we'd have to look at all their charts to make sense of it, but somewhere in there. All right, let's move to Taurus. We're going to go with Stanley Kubrick. And that kind of makes sense right away, even. knowing what a great fictional movie maker he is, right? Jupiter's expanding that, bringing success to all that, and he's got Mars also with Chiron, but Jupiter and Chiron are quite conjunct in Taurus, 7th house, similar to mine. I actually have Chiron at 0 degrees Taurus in the 7th, and Jupiter 16, so much wider, but also South Node, but no Mars. But he's got this grand fire trine. That's quite strong. And so Jupiter and Chiron, Jupiter is expanding the Chironic, the weird factor, the fictional, and his movies reflect that. And it's great movies, right? Chiron does exceptionally well in movies. Where Chiron would not do well, where it's like affecting the physical appearance, right? Because you don't want to look weird. You don't want to look like you're not an extra, like like a character in a movie, right? I mean, unless it's a really good one, but like a weird character, no. But it makes great cinema. Makes great drama. Chiron's a very dramatic element and brings out a lot of weirdness and fiction qualities. Chiron's also perfectly square Venus. Venus is in Leo and Sun's in Leo, so Venus is bona fide by the Sun, but definitely a weird Venus, weird sense of beauty and aesthetics. Neptune is also here for the artistry. So Neptune and Chiron also for the fictional creative element, right? Chiron is, has certain Neptunian qualities, Uranian qualities, and Jupiterian qualities, right? It's kind of a mixture of a lot of different things, right? But Venus actually is bonifying this whole, especially this conjunction of Chiron and Jupiter, because Venus rules by square, but still it's quite strong, especially this Chiron. Yeah. All right. I don't want to spend too long reading, like going over all the different placements, but let's just see here. Yeah, nothing too interesting there. I mean, this grand fire trine is excellent. And Leo Sun, it's all good, for a movie maker, like Stanley Kubrick. Makes sense. Let's go to Gemini. And one of the problems, I just want to point this out, one of the things with Chiron and Jupiter is that the orbits, again, like Jupiter and Saturn, are very slow. So you're not getting a good representation in each sign, right? It takes really long time to meet up in certain signs. Okay. But all right, in Taurus, you also have Martin Luther King Jr., Pablo Picasso, Andy Warhol, Franklin D. Roosevelt, and Virginia Woolf. Right. So it's, we got 2 artists, 2 visual artists, 1 director, a civil rights leader, Virginia Woolf. She was a writer, I believe, and a politician. It's a lot of creative types. Right? Let's go to Gemini. And we're going to go with Degas. Degas. Now, Degas was a famous artist. He's the one who, first of all, excellent drawer. We actually call him draftsman, but I like to say drawer. Because I like to be incorrect. I'm just kidding. I don't know. He was an excellent draftsman, and he liked to draw ballerinas. Okay. And he didn't like to be, he was very unique. He was very different from the other artists. He was an impressionist, one of the main ones, but he didn't like to be called an impressionist. He didn't like to paint the way they did. He's very, like, his style was completely unique. One of the things I just show you here is his Mercury is incredibly slow. Moon's a little out of bounds. Moon, Mars, mutual reception, by exaltation. But yeah, whenever you see the ballerina, like the impressionist ballerina, that's Degas, we like to call them, just for fun. But Jupiter conjunct Chiron in the 5th in Gemini, right? With Mercury and Leo, and very, very still, almost stationary. So you know when the Mercury is stationary, the person can be very, very detailed with any handwork, right? Whether it's playing guitar or any instrument or drawing, painting, he can be very, very exact. So his drawing is very, very exact. Leo is a very creative sign. Gemini, obviously, for the hands. 5th house, so it's 3rd and 5th, Gemini Leo kind of combinations, even though it's 5th and 7th here, but it's still 3rd sign, 5th sign, 5th house. So a lot of 5th, so it means arts, creativity. Right, and then 7th, he liked to paint other people. He didn't like to paint nature. So he wasn't one of those guys. Even as a Capricorn moon, although it's conjunct the 12th house, but Capricorn moon are notoriously inexpressive. So that's interesting. But he does have Neptune at 0 degrees Aquarius in the 12th first. So that's quite creative. Moon square Pluto. So that's heavy. That's intense. Definitely, I would say some hidden sexual desires. I say hidden because Moon in Capricorn, especially in the 12th, is not going to be like, it's not going to be very open. But he loved painting these young ballerinas. So you put that together in your head. Yeah. It's got an exalted Saturn. And he also did sculpture, and this is conjunct the IC, and so it's the 5th whole sign house, and Gemini's ruling, Mercury's ruling the 4th and 5th cusp, but it is ruling the IC, so there is some element of that physicality, right? And that would relate to, artistically, that would relate to sculpture. Okay. So that's Degas. There you go. Artistry, but also like, just doing his own thing, right? Really unique, independent, different. Not wanting to be one of the crowd. I mean, a lot of times in the astro community, I hear people complaining about, Chiron. Oh, I have Chiron here, oh, I have Chiron there. But obviously they haven't done enough research in Chiron, because Chiron can do very, very well in obviously in certain combinations. And so who else do we have in Gemini? Marquis de Sade. And Marquis de Sade was de Sade, however you say it. He wrote some very erotic, taboo books that were just like heavily sexual, highly sexual, and he got into a lot of trouble for it. Okay. Arthur Schopenhauer, who was a philosopher, Lord Byron, who's a poet, and James Whistler, who is a painter, a top-notch painter. Excellent painter. I love James Whistler. Whistler, just in case you don't know, if you're familiar, he painted his mother. That's one of his most famous paintings. It's in profile, and she has like a big black dress, and she's sitting on a chair. Yeah, any case. So yeah, Chiron's very high-minded, right? You can do a lot of high-level stuff with Chiron, but it's going to be different, but that's usually quite good, right? All right, let's move to Cancer. And we're going with Watson, Emma. Not of the Sherlock Holmes fame. All right. Emma Watson. So exalted Jupiter in Cancer, conjunct Chiron, right in the 10th. And this is a very pure expression of this because there's no other planets mixing with it. So it's just Jupiter conjunct Chiron, Jupiter in Cancer conjunct Chiron in the 10th house. So very, obviously visible by the public, right? So, well, she in Harry Potter, that's her role of fame, right? And so Jupiter, exalted Jupiter, and she's great in that. Like she's just, Chiron's a little nerdy, but a little bookish, a little quite high-minded, but she plays this little witch, and Cancer is very witchy, and Jupiter's exalted in Cancer. She does a great job, right? So that's excellent. So if you have Chiron in the 10th, or Chiron in the 5th, or Chiron in any prominent position, you can definitely play, you can be an actor, actress, or Chiron, Neptune, they're going to be interchangeable. Chironic roles will be a bit more weird, science fiction-y. Neptune is glamorous, right? But she didn't play a glamorous role, even though she's very pretty, but her Venus is in Pisces. Yeah, so yeah, for women, when their Venus is strong, they become very pretty. That's one of the things I notice, even if it's not their ascendant lord. Strong Venus usually will create a very pretty woman. Yeah, Jupiter's ruling the 7th and the 4th. So early rise, right? She's young in her Harry Potter. She scored that quite young. And Moon Jupiter reception, mutual reception, not by degree, but by Moon rules Cancer, Jupiter rules Sag, Moon in the 4th. Sun Moon trine was quite nice. Exalted Sun. She's got a lot of good things going. Saturn in Capricorn, that's excellent. Yeah. And let me just check. Moon way out of bounds, so she can, she can push boundaries. She can do some stuff. Yeah, especially when she's young. So I guess that was her Harry Potter role. Pretty slow Mercury, it's super slow, but this Uranus seems pretty slow. In case Moon, Jupiter, Saturn, yeah, she's got a lot of good stuff. Right, but yeah, that's pretty obvious, right? Her role, as a young witch, that's very Chironic. Jupiter conjunct Chiron in the 10th, young witch, actress, very relevant. So Taylor Swift, Jennifer Lawrence, Kristen Stewart, The Weeknd, Joe Jonas, Machine Gun Kelly, and Iggy Azalea all have this combination. So it's a pretty good combination, I'd say. We're going to skip Leo because there's nobody of note, because the last occurrence of this conjunction was in the 1500s. And the only people listed were people that, I didn't even know who they were. And so I'm just skipping it because it doesn't make sense to cover it. We're not going to have that conjunction anytime soon. Well, I don't know when, but in any case, we'll deal with it when we get there. We'll move right on to Virgo. And we're going to pull up a short funny guy, Danny DeVito. Danny DeVito just makes me laugh just thinking about him. Because he's always, he plays such a great character. He's so hilarious and he's so disgusting at the same time, but he's so good. I love his role in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and I love that it's in Philadelphia because it's just, I don't know, it's hilarious. Like if you know Philly, it just makes so much sense. He's got his sun and Mars in Scorpio. Why am I not surprised? And then he's got his Venus in Capricorn, love of money, right? That's very Danny DeVito. And yeah, Mercury. So Moon, Mercury. I'm just looking at his chart a little bit. Moon, Mercury, and is Sag in the 12th, but first whole sign house, opposite Uranus and Gemini. So that's quite funny, right? Let's bring in the funny. But he's got Jupiter and Chiron in Virgo, square the ascendant, right? And Neptune also. So definitely acting is going to be top of the list for him. It's in the 9th quadrant, but 10th whole sign house, right? The square is 26 degrees Virgo, so it's very high in the sky. So it's very still very prominent. And of course, you know, MC in 11th whole sign house in Libra, so he's better in groups and networks than working on it as a solo person. Yeah. Jupiter is sextile the sun and Mars, and even though the signs don't really, you know, do anything for each other, so Mars is in, you know, already good dignity, it's in domicile, it's still good if Jupiter is aspecting, you know, this a prominent planet like the sun. Jupiter is the ascendant lord, so that's quite good. So in Virgo, it's Jupiter's in debility, and so he can play like nasty role. Like Jupiter in Virgo is not going to do well, right? Especially just in general, religion, philosophy, you know, it's pulling in the 9th house. He's not going to be very religious. He's not going to be philosophical or high-minded, or his philosophy is going to tend to be very sort of protracted, contracted, and chironic, weird, you know. It's going to be weird philosophy, weird religion that is very Virgo-ish, so more materialistic, more mechanical, more structured, more logical, right? He's not going to believe in mystical woo-woo, not very much. I mean, he does have Pluto in the 8th, so I mean, maybe there's some of that, but like it's not going to be the like 9th house, like the like praying to God. Like, it'll be much more occultic, right? And practical. But Jupiter ruling as ascendant in a very prominent position, like in Virgo, shows the kind of roles that he can play as well. More roles that are less dignified, right? He's not going to play a role of like a really good guy, right? That's not the kind of roles he ever plays. He's always a bit dirty, and that's because his ascendant lord Jupiter is in poor dignity. But great for acting, great for fictional roles. You know, he can play anything with this Chiron and Neptune. Neptune is sort of all around sort of make believe fantasy. Chiron is that the very science fiction-y type thing. So he can play like really roles that are just any like complete fantasy, right? Like he can, like I think he played the, was it like the Penguin or something like that? Stuff like that, like this, like science, like comic booky. Chiron is comic booky, right? That kind of thing. Yeah. So anyway, that's Danny DeVito. I mean, this makes so much sense. Eric Clapton, Michael Douglas, Debbie Harry, Priscilla Presley, Steve Martin, and Pete Townsend all have it in Virgo. All right, so let's look Libra. Let's go Libra. And I'm going to pull up somebody who I already covered before, but just because it makes so much sense here, David Lynch. And we saw Stanley Kubrick, seen a lot of actors. So I'm trying to paint the picture of Chiron, right? And that's why I have to do David Lynch, because his stuff is so chironic, right? Jupiter conjunct Chiron in the 12th house. The movies he makes are just pure fantasy, pure fiction, like really out there, weird, strange, unusual. Like it's just, I mean, he's also backed up by Neptune, right? So, yeah, the diversity of, you know, Neptune and Chiron combined, again, it's amazing. It's like all the elements of film plus the ability to really go out of bounds into fictional, you know, like comical, strange, absurd, you know, surrealistic, all of the above qualities. right? Jupiter's ruling the second house and fourth and fifth, right? So, I mean, a lot of, very prominent, second house is it's a Taurian house, so voice, values, but like full bodied, like sensual, right? And then fourth and fifth, entertainment, physical and early rise. It's well rounded in the 12th, make believe fantasy. Chiron is square Saturn and Mars. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. So that's bonifying me. But I already went through the whole thing with David Lynch. But this really, this is excellent as far as Jupiter Chiron conjunction. It really shows how that how these two are working together with David Lynch films. So in Libra, everyone's favorite ex-president, Donald J. Trump, Freddie Mercury, Bill Clinton, the other everyone's favorite ex-president, Sylvester Stallone, George W. Bush. So 3 presidents have it, which is pretty amazing, pretty impressive. Cher, Alan Rickman, Dolly Parton. And that's it. Yeah. All right, let's move on to Scorpio. We're going to Terence McKenna, Mr. Why is it not doing it? Maybe I spelled his name wrong. One R. This guy's weird. This guy's super weird, right? Not a super close conjunction, but still it fits. Chiron's at 0 degrees, so it's planets at 0 degrees are extremely they're powerful because they really kind of expands their significance. Very strong, right? They just go to the ultimate, the no limitation, really. No limitation with 0 degree expression of Chiron, right? So weird. Terence McKenna is weird. Like, do you know who Terence, like, if you don't know who Terence McKenna is, obviously some people do. He was a weird kind of philosopher with drugs in the 60s. He just experimented to the nth degree with all kinds of drugs and hallucinogens, I think mostly mushrooms and acid. And then he was also very scientific and claimed to discover all sorts of things about that. Chiron's sextile the moon, so it's going very deep into his, mind. And Scorpio stellium, Scorpio ascendant. Jupiter ruling most of the first house, right? So Jupiter has a strong, and then Mars and Jupiter are in mutual reception so Jupiter is pulling into very strong influence in the first house, and he is kind of like this philosopher. Mercury's also here, so intellectual, adventure, Mars and Sag, South Node and Sag, right, in the first house. So his body, his physicality is very adventurous, right? And scorpionic, deep, and Scorpio also can have a lot of problems with drugs and alcohol because of its destructive nature. But so can Sag, because Sag is more like the partier, the adventurer. Really nice trine here between Pluto and this is serious. This is a very, very serious. Saturn and Pluto is like deep and intense and forceful, and it's like, wow. So like, yeah, his philosophy, he's like, like super serious about like his belief system, his adventure at Jupiter also, because ruling the same significations, Jupiter, right? Jupiter and Scorpio, Pluto in the 9th, Pluto conjunct Saturn. So he's very, very deep into his philosophical journey, right? That's extremely important to him. North Node conjunct Uranus and Gemini. Again, that's pretty, it's extremely intellectual, right? Intellectual extremism, even. But Let me see here. Nothing really out of bounds. Saturn's slow. I wonder how slow Saturn is. Yeah, Saturn's pretty slow, just 4 days from retro. It's about to go retrograde, Saturn. It's very serious, very Saturnian. And as much drugs as he took, his Saturn in the 9th is giving him a very strong kind of philosophical foundation, philosophical rigidity. Saturn in the 9th kind of rejects a lot of things, rejects, it's very skeptical. So he's quite brilliant, I would say, but crazy at the same time. In any case, that's Jupiter and Chiron in Scorpio. There's very few of these, Jupiter and Chiron, Scorpio, at least well known. David Stockman, he's a politician, not very well known, but that's it for Scorpio. But yeah, it's 1940. You'd think there would be more, right? It's not that long ago, but there's not for some reason. I don't know why. In any case, let's go to Sagittarius. And this is somebody who's very unknown, but she's an artist, and I want to share her artwork. So just here, look, Sagittarius, Jupiter, Chiron, Venus, and then further away Uranus in the 5th house. And oh, I don't even need to look. Mars is stationary, and Mars, Mercury. Mars and Mercury have a mutual reception by exaltation, right? And so Mars is stationary. Mars ruling most of the 4th house and the MC and the 9th house cusp. So early childhood, the 2nd house. So there must have been, from a young age, Mars, 2nd house, so art, like creativity, sensuality, kind of like just finding her voice from a young age. Mars can be very physical. Virgo is very exact. Well, let's look at her art. You'll kind of understand it a bit better. See, obviously the Venus for the beauty, and the Jupiter for the ruling Pisces, so creativity, 5th house. But Chiron, you're seeing the conjunction of multiple things, right? And this kind of high-minded quality, fictional elements, kind of strange, weird, odd, but beautiful and high-mind, very like esoteric. And this is in Sagittarius, so Jupiter's very strong here. But I thought it'd be good to get like a different like combinations, just so we get a well-rounded idea of Jupiter and Jupiter and Chiron together, right? Like angelic, mythical, esoteric, beautiful at the same time, but weird, right? Kind of odd. There's a certain oddity about all this. But yeah, so she's a good example of that. Moon's square Saturn exact, but Saturn's in domicile in Capricorn and exalted in Libra, so that's not a bad one. Right? This 5th house is very strong, and this 8th house, so like very deep 8th house Pisces, so this mystical kind of etheric but deep quality as well is coming through. with her art. So it's very interesting, I think. And who else has it in Sag? I wrote Margaret Mitchell, but I don't even know who that is, and I'm not going to bother to look it up. But Aaron Copland, who's the famous composer, he made many movies, but also note the date. The conjunction is pretty long time ago, 1901. So there's not going to be that many people, but yeah, Aaron Copland is a very successful musical composer for, I think, a lot of movies and stuff. Let's go to Capricorn. Oscar the Grouch. No, Oscar Wilde. All right, so first thing I got to say is Oscar Wilde. He was another one of these. There's a lot of them, but there's a reason for it. And what I'm about to say? He's bisexual, right? And so, like, you might notice, like, a lot of artists, musicians are gay or bisexual. That's because they probably have a very strong Venus, right? Especially the guys. If a guy has a strong Venus, I'm not saying he's going to be gay or bisexual, but he might be, right? That's very common because Venus is more feminine. So if his femininity is very strong, then it brings out that kind of, female sexuality, right? Which is gay or bisexual, right? But so his Venus, and I should make a video on this, but I'll just tell you kind of one of the things I've observed. If Venus and Mars are in good harmony, then it is the sexuality is strong. It's but if they're disharmonious, then they could be bisexual. Also, if Venus is strong, right? It depends. There's different combinations, but that's just a. I think if his Mars was not within range of Venus to be aspecting it, he would just be gay, right? Because this Venus would be much stronger. And so Venus and Sun in Libra, it creates a very indulgent character, somebody who's really just loves to enjoy themselves so much, right? Because Venus is strong, Sun is weak, so they become extremely Venetian blinds. They become very Venusian, right? Not Venice, Venus. I'm confusing things. Anyway, Venusian, right? So yeah, very indulgent, tending to be lazy, but he got into a lot of trouble from like accusations of sodomy. But of course, a long time ago, 1854, they were not very liberal minded to his, appetite in the second house, Venus, incredible appetite of all kinds, sexual, like taboo, but look at this grand Earth trine. So for writing, that's excellent. Jupiter, Chiron in the fifth, again in the fifth, Capricorn, right? So Jupiter is not so good in Capricorn, but, so for being naughty, like, and if you saw, I didn't read any of his books, but what is it? Something Gray. I want to look this up. I'm sorry. Oh man. Oscar Wilde. All right. He wrote The Importance of Being Earnest, Salome, and Dorian Gray, The Picture of Dorian Gray. Okay, I saw the movie. Yeah, I didn't like it at all. I'll just be honest, like it's so overly indulgent. It's about this like young, good-looking guy who becomes corrupted by like drugs and alcohol and sex, and he just has sex with everyone and seduces everyone. But there's a magical element because somebody paints a picture of him when he's young, and the picture ages and gets gross and disgusting, but he never ages. So he's able to keep having like sex and partying and drug and being like this awful, awful superficial person, right? like Sun, Venus in Taurus and in Libra, second house, right? The good looks, the charm, the indulgence. But Jupiter is in poor dignity in Capricorn, obviously. So there's an element of decay and moral decay. And eventually it ends in, eventually like he falls in love and he gives it up for love. So it becomes all right in the end, but quite gross. And obviously he sees himself in that way, this young, beautiful man who can sleep with, men and women and do drugs and alcohol and get into trouble. And that was like him in real life, right? So I don't think he was a very morally upstanding kind of person, but he was a very talented writer, right? He's just way too indulgent. And he got into a lot of trouble, court cases, went to jail, and died young of meningitis. All right, so that Moon square Uranus, it's not very good. Pluto's involved, North Node of Pluto, South Node conjunct the Ascendant Lord, that's also. So weakening his health. Ascendant Lord in Scorpio, Mercury in Scorpio, there's no real dignity here. I mean, it's the third house, but so Venus is very strong, and that seems to be his strongest planet. Moon in Leo in the 12th house, that's very creative. But it's Jupiter and Chiron, so good for fiction, especially like fiction that, the Chiron element is not just fiction. It makes it so like he's going to write about things that are just like completely like a painting that is alive and a magical painting that ages while the person doesn't. So it's like taking the aging for him. Neptune and Pisces on the descendant, that's very creative as well. That's perfect trine to his Mercury, right? So yeah, so I don't know about his other writings, but they probably have this chironic element, which is the weird factor, the completely surrealistic or magical or comic booky factor. Jupiter and Chiron is bringing in the poor dignity factor, right? Like his characters are like not well behaved, and he himself is not well behaved either. Jupiter's ruling the 4th and the 7th, so relationships, and that's what he got in trouble for this kind of debauchery, sodomy, gay affairs, I don't know, but from a young age. Mars is very sexual and adventurous. In any case, South Node in Scorpio, Mercury in Scorpio. So yeah, Oscar Wilde. Planets in poor dignity will not behave themselves, and that's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, it depends. Yeah, and they can behave themselves in certain situations, but then they're going to deal with other or outside influences that represent the poor dignity. And we'll get into that another time. All right, so that's Capricorn, and then so it's pretty early on, so there's not going to be a lot. Arthur Rimbaud, which I looked him up, and I can't remember who he is, but Clark Gable, Louis Armstrong, Alberto Giacometti, who's another artist who's great. Also very strange, weird, but beautiful. And Manly Palmer Hall, who is a philosopher and a occultist, right? But he was very wise. But somehow, yeah, I don't know. I have to look at his chart, but I don't think it was a very good chart. That's why I didn't use it. Okay, let's look up Aquarius. Jean-Jacques Rousseau. We're just going to do a really quick one here. I was contemplating skipping it, but he's a philosopher and a writer, and I don't know much about him, but just that he's a philosopher, and he had some success and a long time ago, 1712. But Jupiter conjunct Chiron in Aquarius in the 6th house. So very prolific, hardworking, intellectual Aquarian philosopher who, you know, I don't know actually how Chiron, well, Chiron here is probably making him very high-minded, and there's a square to Moon. The Moon is in good dignity. Neptune, so very imaginative. Saturn, Chiron, so that's going to, well, Saturn rules Aquarius, co-rules it, so it's going to bonify this Chiron and Jupiter by conjunction. And Jupiter is ruling the 4th and 7th. So interesting. Well, let's just move right along. I don't know enough about him to make it to say anymore. But yeah, Giuseppe Garibaldi, he's the other one, and I don't even know who he is, but in any case, who cares? And this is not even a good chart because it's rated double D, and that means that it's conflicting, or they're not even sure whether it's accurate. And let me just go back. Oscar Wilde's is a C, so that's not completely good either. But a lot of times they don't have good charts for all these people that I'm trying to look at. And Stanley Kubrick is a double D, so also his is conflicting and verified. All right, but let's move to Pisces. And we're going to look up Mr. Frank of the Sinatra. And he's a good representation of Jupiter and Chiron in Pisces. Number one, because there's not really any other planets interfering. I mean, Moon in Pisces is ways away, but it's not that close. But this is in the 5th house. Jupiter ruling the 2nd house with Mercury and Sun in the 2nd house. So obviously voice is going to be prominent. Jupiter bonifying the Sun and Mercury quite tightly. That's good. But the square, Chiron to the Sun is, we'll deal with not only vitality, but the overall appearance of a person. And he was a weird looking guy. I mean, not bad looking, but he had these big ears. He's very skinny. So he did have like this kind of awkward appearance, but Jupiter in dignity here in Pisces made it work for him, right? It wasn't a problem. Jupiter ruling the 2nd, what else? 5th, right? So the voice and entertainment and all that. Chiron definitely is going to make it unique, different, stand out. And I think that's good. I think that's good for Frank Sinatra because Jupiter's so strong that the Chironic element just takes it to another level, right? Not so much if Jupiter was not in such good dignity, but it is. So therefore, it is making him, you know, unusual, different, unique, right? And Jupiter bonifying the 2nd house planets, it's even better, right? You know, that it just makes him one of a kind. You know, it has that Uranian vibe, very unique, different, high-minded. He was high-minded. He was, you know, very friendly character, especially to like, you know, Sammy Davis Jr. was his brother. There was a lot of racism at that time. Not his real brother, but he called him his brother, right? And he was like, you know, he stood by him and supported him when any like place didn't want Sammy Davis Jr. to sing. Like he would back up Sammy Davis Jr. And I can't remember details, but like probably like not play there, you know, not sing there because, you know, protest, supporting Sammy Davis Jr. So, you know, that's Jupiter, and that's also Chiron. Chiron has that both like teachers, philosophers type thing. So that's the plus side of Chiron. right there. There's no other strong negative aspects there, so it's influencing his personality somewhat. But again, the Jupiter is helping it out a lot. So yeah. Who else has this combination? Tom Cruise, Jodie Foster, Demi Moore, Michael Jordan, Anthony Kiedis, Billie Holiday, and Jordan Peterson. So it seems like a pretty good combination. Jupiter and Chiron in Pisces. Yeah. That is it for Jupiter and Chiron. Yeah. Guys, don't be afraid of Chiron. It's not going to, it has its plus side and minus side, but overall, I think it can work really well, especially if you know what it's good for. So that's it. I hope you liked it. Please hit the like button if you're able to, and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment down below. Come to my class on Sunday, January 14th, but drop me an email if you haven't already. And book a reading with me. My email is macrogoldmachine, and my website is macroastrology.com. So yeah, that's it. I will see you again soon. All right, thanks, bye.